A 14-year saga comes to an end tonight for Julian Assange. The WikiLeaks founder is due to touch down on home soil and into the arms of his family after pleading guilty to one count of espionage. The standoff with the United States now brought to a close in an obscure territory of the United States. North Asia correspondent James Oaten reports from the Pacific island of Saipan.
After a battle spanning more than a decade,
how does it feel to be a free man, Mr. Assange?
Julian Assange's legal odyssey is finally over. The WikiLeaks founder walking free, heading home to Australian soil.
Today is a historic day. It brings to an end 14 years of legal battles. And finally, after 14 years of legal battles, Julian Assange can go home a free man.
The 52-year-old faced court on the island of Saipan. It's the closest US territory to Australia and a compromise due to fears about stepping foot on the US mainland.
Julian, how are you feeling?
Supported by US Ambassador Kevin Rudd and Australia's High Commissioner to the UK, Stephen Smith. Mr. Assange pleaded guilty to conspiring with former US Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning to obtain and disseminate classified documents, hundreds of thousands of files that would be posted on WikiLeaks. That single charge carrying a maximum of 10 years in jail. Instead, a federal court judge determining time already served was enough punishment.
He pleaded guilty to an offence for having published information in the public interest, for which he's won journalism awards the world over and been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize every year for the past decade.
Julian Assange may have walked from this courthouse a free man, but the judge warned him this plea deal was only possible due to the passage of time. It's clear now, she explained, that no one was harmed as a result of his actions, and having already spent 5 years in one of Britain's harshest jails, there was no need to detain him any longer. His supporters say the charges were a warning.
This is about more than Julian Assange. This is about freedom of the press. This is about how we treat journalists in this country and around the world.
We don't want this to happen to anybody else, because that would really have a chilling effect on investigative journalism.
Lawyers for Julian Assange say he plans to continue his work with WikiLeaks, but in the days ahead, friends and family say recovery is a priority.
I think he probably is looking forward to time with his wife and his two small children. I think probably most of the memories his two small children have of him are of daddy behind bars.
Returning home to a family ever grateful for Australia's support.
We Australians managed to turn around a superpower in its attempt to destroy an Australian citizen.
A free man, but also now a felon. James Oaten, ABC News, Saipan.
The Albanese government is welcoming Julian Assange's return to Australia, closing a chapter on a torrid legal battle which has dragged on for more than a decade. There's broad consensus across federal parliament that he and his family have suffered enough, even if there are mixed views as to his guilt or innocence. From Canberra, political reporter Matthew Doran.
Welcoming a visiting Pacific leader, but with one cautious eye on other matters developing in the neighbourhood.
Given those proceedings are happening literally in real time, it isn't appropriate to provide further commentary.
Anthony Albanese wary of saying too much while Julian Assange was on his feet in a Saipan courtroom. But once his private jet was wheels up and en route to Canberra...
This is what standing up for Australians around the world looks like.
The Prime Minister describing the release as the result of persistent diplomacy behind the scenes.
This outcome has been the product of careful, patient and determined work. Work I am very proud of.
Believing he speaks on behalf of millions of Australians.
Regardless of your views about his activities, and they will be varied, Mr. Assange's case has dragged on for too long.
We're very pleased to see him return to Australia, but I don't think that hero worship is an appropriate response.
Julian Assange means a different thing to just about every person.
The WikiLeaks founder's staunchest parliamentary supporters embracing his father, while noting his release has come at a cost.
It's regrettable that Julian was left with no option but to plead guilty to one charge.
Arguing his ordeal sets a dangerous precedent.
I hope that this is the last time in a developed country, be it the United States or Australia, that the law is used to silence a journalist.
There's a reluctance within government ranks to be seen to be popping corks about Julian Assange's return. But there is a quiet sense of achievement that high-level lobbying appears to have paid off. Mr Assange's reception here in the nation's capital in coming days will give a sense of just how delicate this issue continues to be and how the government will handle sensitivities with the United States. Matthew Doran, ABC News, Canberra.
Julian Assange's plane will be touching down in Canberra in about half an hour. National Affairs Editor Melissa Clark is there. Melissa, what's involved in the final steps of Julian Assange's long journey home?
Well, Jeremy, it has been a long journey. It's taken in everywhere from the Ecuadorian embassy in London to the Northern Mariana Islands, but it will end very soon, in about half an hour's time, here in Canberra at this military RAF base. He will come through, be greeted by officials, go through the usual customs and biosecurity measures before being whisked away in Canberra. It's going to be quite an adjustment to normal life for Julian Assange, quite a transition. We don't know if we'll hear from him in the coming times. We know his family and lawyers will be speaking later on this evening, as will the Prime Minister. But for Julian Assange, as someone who's been a publisher, an entrepreneur, a provocateur, I think we can safely assume we will hear more from him at some point soon.
Melissa Clark in Canberra.